After a challenging day at work, I returned home to find my wife absent. "Jane," I called upstairs upon arrival. "I'm back." "I'll be down in a minute, Tarzan," came her reply. It was a playful reference stemming from the time we first met at a costume party. I was dressed as Tarzan, and as we nearly collided, I began, "Excuse me, I'm," only to be interrupted by her declaring, "You Tarzan," while pointing at me, then herself, "Me Jane," she added with a laugh. As fate would have it, her name truly was Jane, and from that moment on, we became Tarzan and Jane. Married for what I believed to be 5 happy years, I cracked open a beer, settled on the couch, and turned on the news. Just as the headlines concluded, Jane descended the stairs, stunning me with her attire, a favorite little black dress of mine, revealing and backless, paired with the anniversary necklace I had given her just a month prior. Impressed, I reached for my phone to capture the moment, oblivious to the tumult to follow. "Surprise," I managed. "I didn't realize we had plans. Let me freshen up and change." "Where are we headed?" "We're not going anywhere. Robert Cohen invited me out to dinner and dancing," she revealed casually. "Not Bob Cohen, the notorious womanizer who got banned from all company events for crossing boundaries with married women?" I protested. "He's not like that. It was just some drama caused by a jealous wife," she dismissed. "Well, consider me a jealous husband who refuses to let you go out with him." "Refuse? You don't control me," she retorted, heading for the door. "I may not control you, but we made vows to each other. Those vows meant something to me, and I thought they meant something to you too," I pleaded. "Times have changed. It's the 21st century, nobody takes those things seriously anymore," she countered. "I wish you had told me sooner so we could have divorced and done as we pleased," I sighed. "Divorce? Please," she scoffed, laughing. As she made her way to the door, I retrieved an old friend, a Louisville slugger, from the closet, just as Alexis pulled into the driveway. "Robert's here. Order yourself some dinner," she instructed, walking out. "Jane," I called, and as she turned, I tore the dress off her, leaving her in just a skimpy black thong and heels. She hesitated, then hurried back inside. I approached Alexis, tapping the baseball bat in my hand, and Cohen quickly reversed, fleeing the scene. Acknowledging the neighbors who had witnessed Jane's dramatic return, I re-entered the house and stowed away the bat. Swapping my warm beer for a fresh one, I settled back down, bracing for the confrontation. It didn't take long for Jane to reappear, now draped in a robe and visibly furious. I listened as she unleashed her frustrations, with language as colorful as Paul Simon's lyrics, until she eventually quieted down. "What were you thinking, or were you?" I finally interjected. "I don't know. Our life feels so stale, like we've lost our spark," she confessed. "Why am I just hearing about this now? And every time I've suggested something different lately, you've been too busy, uninterested, or called it gross. Even if you wanted to change, why resort to such a humiliating attempt?" I questioned. "I thought if I told you, it wouldn't be considered cheating," she rationalized. "That's absurd. Sleeping with someone else without my consent is still cheating," I asserted. "Maybe you could give me your consent," she proposed hopefully. "You've truly lost your mind. I need to leave before I say or do something we'll both regret," I declared, grabbing my keys and departing before she could respond. I sought solace in my favorite bar, where Sam greeted me with concern. As I recounted the evening's events, he empathized. "You denied her, right?" he assumed. "Of course I did. What kind of man do you take me for?" I retorted. Just as I was about to confront him further, he lightened the mood. "Just messing with you, buddy." "What happened next?" She spewed the usual excuses about not being owned and dismissed fidelity as outdated, I recounted. "Sounds like a mess," Sam sympathized. It was. I ended up tearing her dress off in a fit of anger. She froze, then realized the neighbors could see her and rushed inside, I revealed. "At least you stood your ground," Sam remarked. "It was temporary." After she calmed down, she went back to the same old arguments about our routine sex life and the blurred lines of fidelity, I sighed. Sam offered a few more beers, and together we drank to drown out the evening's troubles. I decided to have one last drink before calling it a night, mindful of avoiding a DUI. "Good night and good luck, John," Sam bid me farewell. "Thanks, Sam. I might need it," I replied. Arriving home, I found Jane already in bed. After my evening routine, I slipped into my pajamas and settled into bed, facing away from her. Despite hearing what sounded like her soft crying, I chose to ignore it and drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Jane was already up and preparing breakfast when I came downstairs. Breakfast passed in silence until we finished cleaning up, and then Jane resumed the conversation. "John, can't you see that times have changed? People don't expect lifelong monogamy anymore." "Well, I do. And I don't think I'm alone. And about being with one person for life, neither of us were virgins when we met. We had previous experiences," I countered. "That's not what I meant. We were young then, inexperienced. We have more to compare now," she argued. "I don't need to compare anything. I compared enough before proposing to you because I knew you were the one I wanted to be with. And when you said yes, you were agreeing to the same. Were you lying?" I pressed. "No, but..." "But what? Have you changed your mind? If so, maybe we should consider divorce," I suggested. "I don't want a divorce," she insisted. "You can't have it both ways. If you don't want a divorce, then this needs to stop," I asserted. Looking down, she murmured, "I don't want a divorce." "Then it's settled," I concluded, though uncertainty lingered. Despite Jane's assurances that she had abandoned thoughts of another man, I couldn't shake my doubts. Her delayed returns and lack of communication only fueled my suspicions. The tension between us grew palpable, affecting even our intimacy, which became strained and lacked its former passion. Finally, I made a difficult decision. "Jane, I want a divorce," I announced. She was stunned. "But I thought we were okay." "Do you honestly believe that?" I challenged. "We're far from okay, from where we used to be, from where we need to be." She shook her head, acknowledging the truth. Telling our families was tough. They couldn't comprehend why we couldn't reconcile. When her father confronted me, I showed him the picture of Jane's attire, and he understood. More questions followed from our families, and while I shielded Jane from the blame to spare her embarrassment, I eventually had to reveal the truth. Incredibly, she came seeking sympathy for the criticism she faced. "John, is there anything I can do to change your mind about the divorce?" Jane's plea echoed in the room. I pondered for a moment, devising a condition I believed she wouldn't accept. "All right, Jane, I won't proceed with the divorce, but only if you agree to a condition." Her face lit up with hope. "Anything, John, just name it." "Be careful what you promise." "Anything covers a lot," I warned. "My condition is this: I'll allow you to date other men, but only if I can also date other women." I could swear I detected a smirk before she masked it with a saccharine smile. "Of course, John, that sounds fair," she agreed, much to my chagrin. "Is there anything else?" "Yes," I continued, "you can't start dating until I've found a date myself." Her expression betrayed a hint of agitation. She must have already had someone lined up, worried about what would happen if I couldn't find anyone. To appease her, I added, "If I can't find a date within 2 weeks, you can proceed with your plans." Her joy was palpable, and she enveloped me in a hug, peppering my face with kisses. "Thank you, John, this will rejuvenate our marriage," she enthused. Little did she know, I had a plan to end this charade once and for all. Days later, I surprised her by announcing I had a date and proposed a double date for the following Friday, which she agreed to, likely assuming I was bluffing. Unbeknownst to Jane, I had arranged a date that I hoped would put an end to this nonsense. I took a long lunch to buy new clothes, snuck them into the house, and got myself groomed before she returned home. On the night of our double date, I greeted her with my new look, catching her off guard. "Robert will be picking me up at 6:30, she informed me. "That's fine. Our reservation at Amelia's is for 7 o'clock, under my name in case you arrive early, I replied as I headed out. Meanwhile, at work, there was a new colleague, Kandi DeSantis, a stunning redhead who turned heads whenever she passed by. We had a professional rapport, but when I invited her for drinks after work, her curiosity piqued. As I sat at the bar waiting her arrival, she teased, "So, John, what's got the last American Boy Scout breaking out of his shell?" My somber demeanor shifted Candide's tone from teasing to empathetic concern. "Oh, John, I'm truly sorry," she expressed, her warm touch comforting. "I didn't mean to tease you, but you're usually so composed. You seem like you've lost your best friend." Tears welled up in my eyes, and I glanced away. Candide draped her arm around my shoulders and guided me to a table, allowing me a moment to collect myself while she patiently listened to my woes. "Well," she eventually spoke up, "there's only one solution." "We?" I questioned. "Yes, we. I'll be your date," she declared. Her unexpected offer elicited a laugh from me, the first since Jane's bewildering proposition. "Why are you laughing?" "I'm serious," she insisted. I gazed into her eyes, half expecting a playful twist that never came. It dawned on me that she was genuine. "Why me?" "I know you don't entertain married men, and you rarely entertain single ones. If they thought they had a shot, every straight and half the gay guys in the office would be vying for your attention," I pointed out. "I'm not seeking just any date. As you've noticed, I have options. But I genuinely like you. Maybe because you're not constantly eyeing me up. Well, not always," she teased, eliciting a chuckle from me. "You treat me with respect. In meetings, you value my ideas and support me against dismissive colleagues. More importantly, I'm appalled by how your wife has treated you. So, do we have a date or not?" "I may not have been born yesterday, but I'm not turning this down," I replied, finishing my drink and escorting Candide to her car, where she shared her number and a friendly hug before departing. I felt a surge of anticipation as I drove away, sensing that my life was about to take an unexpected turn. Arriving at Candide's apartment, I hurried to open her door, catching a glimpse of her stunning appearance. She stood taller than Jane but still shorter than me. Her emerald green dress, though slightly longer than Jane's ill-fated outfit, hugged her curves provocatively, with a daring slit up one side. Her wavy red hair cascaded down her back, framing her features exquisitely. As we drove, she playfully teased, causing my discomfort to grow. By the time we reached the restaurant, I was relieved to regain my composure. Inside, Jane and Robert awaited us. While Robert's presence didn't impress me, Jane's appearance stunned me. She had clearly dressed to impress. Ignoring Robert, I nodded to Jane as I assisted Candide into her seat, grateful for her presence by my side. Jane's astonishment at my beautiful date was evident. I sensed she was about to make a snide remark but refrained. Meanwhile, Robert seemed fixated on Candide's cleavage, prompting Jane to nudge him to attention. Initially fearing an awkward dinner, I was relieved when the evening unfolded smoothly. To an observer, we appeared as two ordinary couples, not a husband and wife with different partners. After dinner, we headed to a club for drinks and dancing. Fast dances posed no issue, but during a slow dance, as Candide nestled against me, Jane shot daggers with her eyes. Attempting to match our intimacy, Jane provocatively danced with Robert, drawing unwanted attention. When things escalated, I escorted Candide away, feeling embarrassed for Jane. We watched as Jane and Robert's behavior attracted management's attention, resulting in their expulsion. Jane rushed back to our table in tears, followed by Robert. "Well, you certainly know how to give a girl a memorable night," Candide remarked playfully. I chuckled, and we returned to the dance floor. As we prepared to leave, I approached the manager. "I apologize for our companion's behavior," I said. "No problem, sir." "We understand," the manager replied, eyeing Candide. I must admit, that was my soon-to-be ex-wife, and I believe she was a tad jealous of my date here, I explained. The manager nodded, offering a smile. "Feel free to return any time," he said before returning to his duties. I escorted Candide to her apartment, and as I leaned in for a goodnight kiss, she surprised me with a passionate embrace. Care for a nightcap, she invited, hinting at more. The nightcap was quickly forgotten as passion consumed us. She straddled my lap, her dress falling away to reveal her enticing lingerie. I eagerly explored her body, feeling the heat rising between us. Moments later, she liberated my desire, and with a mischievous smile, she tantalized me with her touch. The night held promises of ecstasy as we surrendered to desire, leaving all else behind. She took me slowly, tantalizingly, and I wondered how long I could hold on. With deliberate movements, she swirled her tongue around the head, then took me deeper. She didn't engulf me entirely, but it didn't matter. Moving back and forth, her pace increased, her mouth working wonders on me. As her speed intensified, I sensed my impending climax and tried to signal her, but she simply smiled up at me until I released into her mouth. Cuddling close, she nestled against me, and I wrapped my arm around her, tracing circles on her skin. Afterward, I trailed kisses down her body, stopping at her waist where her dress still clung. I knelt before her, removing her dress and panties, reveling in her beauty before me. I traced delicate patterns along her legs, slowly ascending to her most intimate area. Her almost bare pussy awaited, a small tuft above it hinting at hidden delights. With a single pass, I teased her clit, eliciting a moan as she opened herself to me. Parting her lips, I delved in, exploring with my tongue, feeling her respond eagerly. Finding her sweet spot, I brought her to climax before preparing to enter her. But she had other ideas, shifting to offer herself in a position she desired. As I took her from behind, I marveled at her openness, contrasting it with Jane's inhibitions. As I moved within her, she urged me on, craving more intensity. I obliged, satisfying her desires until she climaxed once more, and only then did I release my own passion. As we lay together, a thought struck me. Kandi, I forgot to use protection in the heat of the moment. It's all right, I'm on birth control, she reassured me. Drawing her close, I kissed her deeply, our bodies intertwining in the afterglow. Our connection deepened as we explored each other's bodies with tender affection. She clung to me, her response overwhelming as I lavished attention on her. Lost in the moment, I focused solely on her pleasure, disregarding any reservations. She held onto me tightly, her grip conveying her arousal and desire. Thankfully, she soon reached climax, releasing the pressure on my head as I drew a deep breath. As I made my way back up her body, planting sloppy kisses on her face, my fully recovered cock hovered at the entrance to her vagina. Eagerly, she licked our combined juices off my face as my cock slid easily into her. Sensing her desire, I rose up on my forearms and proceeded to make love to her with abandon. Time seemed to blur as we moved together, reaching mutual climax before falling into a blissful slumber. Reflecting on the passion we shared, I couldn't fathom where Jane got the idea that our sex life was dull and routine. My time with Kandi proved otherwise. I spent the night at Kandi's, waking up to a gentle blowjob. We showered separately, and as she finished up, I prepared breakfast for us. Wow, she said, a great lover and a cook? I may just keep you around. About that, I began as we sat down to eat. Last night was incredible, but I have to address the issues in my marriage before considering anything serious. Don't worry, John, I was teasing. I like you, but let's take it slow and see where things go. We finished breakfast with casual conversation until I decided it was time to face the reality of my marriage. Walking in, I found Jane at the kitchen table, visibly upset. One glance at my contented expression set off another round of tears. I sat opposite her, sipping coffee. "How was your night with Robert?" she asked. "It was what it was," I replied. "But I think we need to talk about us." Jane's tears flowed freely as she expressed her regrets. I reassured her, acknowledging her remorse but emphasizing the need for change. "I'm going out for a bit," I said. "When I return, let's continue this conversation." She pleaded for me not to leave, but I insisted, needing time to process. Upstairs, I made a decision, preparing to move my things to the guest room. Jane remained seated at the table as I made my way towards the door. "John," she said, and I paused, meeting her gaze. "I love you." With a nod, I left the house. It might seem callous, but I needed Jane to grasp the fragility of our marriage. Strolling down to the Charles River, I watched the rowers and sailboats, pondering the future. The sight of families with children tugged at my heart, prompting thoughts of our own potential family. Time slipped away as the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving me with a chill. Returning home, I found Jane still seated, her hopeful look dashed as I silently retreated to my room, locking the door behind me. Exhausted, I collapsed on the bed, fully clothed, grappling with conflicting emotions. Sometime later, I heard a faint knock on my door followed by Jane's whispered voice. Ignoring her, I waited until I was certain she had left for the guest room before taking a quick shower and succumbing to sleep. The next morning, Jane had prepared a hearty breakfast, though her own appetite seemed lacking. "John," she began tentatively, "do you think we could try counseling?" Contemplating the idea, I wrestled with doubts. Would counseling address our issues or merely validate Jane's perspective? Despite my reservations, I couldn't dismiss the possibility of salvaging our marriage. "Okay, Jane, let's give counseling a chance," I relented. Her relief was palpable, though I made my terms clear. I wasn't interested in a counselor pushing their agenda. I wanted genuine support for our relationship. Surprisingly, counseling proved fruitful. Jane recognized her role in our marital struggles, while I acknowledged the need for assertiveness. We delved deeper into our desires and expectations for our sex life during our counseling sessions. Despite making progress, the betrayal still weighed heavily on my mind, even though I intervened before it fully transpired. Jane, meanwhile, struggled with her insecurities concerning Kandi. Despite my reassurances that my feelings for Kandi were not romantic and our date was merely a statement, Jane couldn't shake her doubts. Eventually, we reached the decision to pursue an amicable divorce. After the divorce was finalized, I took some time to reflect on my life. Rather than immediately pursuing a relationship with Kandi, I opted for a retreat to a B&B on the Maine coast. The solitude allowed me to contemplate my next steps without distraction. Upon my return, I reached out to Kandi, and we went out to dinner. While we did share a night together, it was more about seeking solace than seeking passion. The following morning, as we lay in bed, Kandi prompted me to share my thoughts. I admitted to contemplating the idea of a more permanent relationship but acknowledged the need for caution. Despite our connection, I expressed concerns about rushing into anything, fearing it might be a rebound. Kandi understood my hesitation and agreed that proceeding with caution was wise. We shared a quiet breakfast before parting ways tearfully. As I left her apartment, I suggested meeting for dinner in 2 weeks, just to catch up. Despite the bittersweet farewell, I couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty and questioned whether I had made the right decision. During the following week, I grappled with doubt and uncertainty. On Friday, I decided to join some friends for dinner and drinks. We were seated in a corner booth, with me facing the door, contemplating the choices that led me to this moment. As we finished our dessert, I spotted Kandi entering the restaurant with a tall, handsome man. It stung to see her with someone new so soon, but I reminded myself that this was part of our agreement to explore other connections. Feeling a mix of disappointment and resolve, I decided to put myself out there as well. I hesitated to approach her, realizing it wouldn't be appropriate given our situation. Frustrated with the speed at which she seemed to move on, I excused myself from my friends when Kandi went to the restroom. It was clear we both were eager to explore new possibilities. Feeling a bit apprehensive, I arranged a date for the following Friday with Cheryl Thompson, a receptionist at one of my clients. Despite our professional interactions, I was taken aback by how stunning she looked when she greeted me at her door. Cheryl's charm and conversation made dinner an enjoyable experience, although the topic of my divorce naturally came up. Over coffee and dessert, I felt it necessary to be upfront about my recent relationship with Kandi and our decision to see other people. I expressed my intentions clearly, not wanting Cheryl to feel like a mere placeholder. Her response was understanding and gracious, appreciating my honesty and suggesting we take things one step at a time. With that hurdle behind us, we continued our date with ease, sharing warm conversation and ending the evening with a promising kiss and plans for another outing. On Friday, I had my dinner date with Kandi, uncertain about how it would unfold. When I picked her up, she looked as stunning as ever. Our conversation was casual until we placed our orders, then she turned serious. I saw you, she said. I raised my eyebrows, curious. While I was out to dinner, I caught sight of you with your friends. I planned to come over and say hello, but when I returned from the restroom, you were gone. I felt a bit embarrassed, I admitted. Though we agreed to see other people, seeing you with another man stirred up some jealousy in me. Silly, I know, but... John, there's no need to be jealous, she interrupted. Stefan was an old friend I hadn't seen in ages. When he invited me to dinner, I saw it as an opportunity amidst our situation. I'm sorry if it upset you. No need to apologize, I assured her. In fact, it motivated me to take action and ask someone out. We had dinner last week. Kandi raised her eyebrows playfully. Should I be feeling jealous? I chuckled. I don't think so, though we do have another date tomorrow night. We're both on the same page, no strings attached, just enjoying each other's company. That sounds nice, she said with a wistful smile. You deserve to have a good time. Our conversation shifted to lighter topics as our dinners arrived. Afterwards, I offered to take her dancing, but she declined, opting to head home instead. During the quiet ride back, she seemed lost in thought, gazing out the window. When we reached her door, we shared a kiss, perhaps a bit more passionate than intended, and reluctantly pulled away. Keep in touch, John, she said softly. I will. Good night, Candide, I replied, retreating to my car before lingering any longer. My date with Cheryl went smoothly, ending with a heated goodnight kiss, though we refrained from taking things further. Despite occasional chats with Candide, our paths didn't cross much afterwards. Whether it was subconscious avoidance or mere chance, I couldn't say. I saw Cheryl a few more times, and while we did end up in bed, it lacked the spark I was hoping for. As Cheryl and I lay in bed after our third night together, she dropped a bombshell. John, I think this should be our last time, she said. What? I thought we were fine, I replied, puzzled. We are. Maybe too fine, Cheryl explained. When we started, we agreed on no strings attached, and I meant it. But I'm starting to develop feelings for you, and if we keep going, I'm afraid it might lead to places I'm not ready for. I'd rather end it now, before it gets too complicated. It's a strange way to put it, but I understand, I said, feeling a pang of disappointment. I'll get over it. After getting dressed and giving Cheryl the kiss on the forehead, I left her apartment, feeling a mix of emotions. My next move was to explore various relationships with different women, from one-night stands to short-term flings, but nothing seemed to click like it did with Cheryl. Eventually, I realized what I was missing and decided to reach out to Candide. Hello, she answered. It's me, John, I said, forgetting she had caller ID. Candide, I'm not worried about rebounds anymore. I've had my fair share. If you'll still have me, I want to come back to you. There was a moment of silence before she responded, How soon can you get here? Epilogue, Jane didn't face any drastic consequences after our divorce. She dated casually, but nothing serious. Candide even wanted to invite Jane to our wedding, though Jane declined, opting to send a gift instead. Surprisingly, Candide and Jane developed a casual friendship, meeting occasionally for coffee or shopping, which I found unusual but didn't mind. About 6 months into our marriage, Candide surprised me by suggesting we have dinner with Jane. Isn't this a bit much? I asked. Don't worry, there's a method to my madness, she assured me. Knowing Candide, I realized there was no use arguing, so I went along with her plan. Jane was already waiting at the hostess station when we arrived, and the atmosphere was undeniably awkward. As Candide and Jane exchanged the customary cheek kisses, I stood there, feeling uneasy. Jane broke the silence. John, it's good to see you, you're looking well. Thank you, Jane. You look nice too, I replied. Thankfully, the hostess spared us further discomfort by leading us to our table, though Candide lingered for a moment to speak to someone at the desk. What was that about? I asked when she rejoined us. Nothing for you to worry about, dear, she assured me. Now, any husband knows that nothing usually means something, but I decided to play along and hope for the best. Seated at the table, Jane was on my right, Kandi across from me. Before we could even order drinks, a host approached with Stefan. Candide greeted him warmly, hugged him, and seated him to my left, opposite Jane. It became clear that Candide had a plan, and while I was relieved it wasn't as bad as I'd feared, I sensed potential disaster. Fortunately, Jane and Stefan hit it off, and conversation flowed smoothly throughout dinner. We seemed like old friends. As the evening drew to a close, Stefan and I split the bill. Candide and I left, while Jane and Stefan opted to continue at the restaurant bar. Though I couldn't help feeling a bit annoyed with Candide's self-assuredness, I couldn't deny they were off to a good start. To make amends for misjudging her, I treated Candide to a sensual massage, followed by intimate lovemaking. Our relationship with Jane and Stefan remained cordial but distant. We rarely socialized as couples, preferring group gatherings instead. It seemed Jane and Stefan had found stability, no longer needing to spice up their relationship. We wished them well. Candide and I couldn't be happier, though our pregnancy sometimes interrupts our sleep with the baby's kicks. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Remember, you're writing a story too, and it's up to you whether it's a good one or not. Write your opinion in the comments.